Y'all, we're making chaffles again. Come on. All right, y'all, welcome back to the channel. Today we're testing low-carb chaffles again. This seems to be the project that never dies. It seems that there are as many chaffle recipes as there are cars on the road. Everybody creates a new chaffle recipe and they change one or two things, add one or two ingredients, and they promise you the best chaffle ever. So today we're testing two more that are really popular, and they are for fluffy chaffles. Now I say fluffy because there seems to generally be about three complaints with chaffles. They're either too eggy, they are too cheesy, or where I fall, they can be too crunchy. And yes, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I realize I like crunchy things. If you'll check the video I did last time at the chaffle battle, those crunchy chaffles are great. But I find them best for uses like a pizza chaffle or things where they're going to be a base. They don't particularly, to me, make very good buns for sandwiches or burgers, and that's sort of what chaffles kind of are. They're a bread replacement, a popular bread replacement for keto and low carb eaters. So it can be cumbersome and difficult to eat a sandwich with a chaffle that is super crunchy. So today we're testing two recipes for low carb chaffles that are fluffy and promise to make a good sandwich bun. The first of those is an old recipe that I've never made, and this is the Wonder Bread chaffle. We're going to be using the recipe from Steve over at Serious Keto. His recipe on his website is published back in 2019, but even he says that he was looking for the original recipe developer. He thinks it may have been Keto Mama Nassim, but this has been around for a while. I've just never tried it, but it's supposed to be like Wonder Bread. And the second recipe is a new recipe, about 4 days old, a little baby chaffle, and this is from our friend Victor over at Southern Keto, and it is his recipe for the ultimate chaffle. So we're going to be testing both of those right now, and let's get started on this first recipe. Okay, so for our first recipe, we're going to start with the newest of the recipes. This is Southern Keto, Victor's ultimate chaffle recipe. And the important part of this recipe, he says, is that you need to do it either with an immersion blender. I don't have an immersion blender, so I'm just going to use my regular cup blender. And that your eggs need to be at room temperature. That is apparently extremely important in the outcome of this recipe. So we're going to start with two eggs, two whole eggs there. And to this, we're going to add in the other important ingredient, and that is a cup of part skim, low moisture, shredded mozzarella. And again, the important part of that is the part that says low moisture and part skim. If you're using a full fat mozzarella, that will change the texture of this recipe. So he said to make sure that those are two important factors that you take into account when you're selecting your cheese. Part skim, low moisture. To this, we're going to add in half a cup of almond flour. My little blender here is going to be quite full, so hopefully we get it all in there. To this, we're also going to add in two different ingredients that sort of change the texture of this. And this is going to be Greek yogurt. He specifically in his video used fat-free, so that's what I'm using here, but he did say you can just use regular full fat or partial fat Greek yogurt, but I'm copying him, and that's what I happen to have on hand. It's the Fage Greek yogurt. Now is his true secret ingredient that combats one of those problems with the chaffle, and that is the egginess. So he uses a teaspoon of lemon juice to cut that eggy flavor, being a room temperature egg and then using a little bit of lemon juice. Now he used the bottled lemon juice that he had in his fridge. I don't have any of that, so he said you could definitely use fresh lemon juice. I did have a lemon, so that's what I'm going to use there. So that's a teaspoon of lemon juice. So all of this goes, and he used his immersion blender, but again, I don't have one, but I do have a cup blender. So this is going to go quickly, guys, this whole recipe. You know, chaffles are fast, and that's part of the magic of it all. So I'm just going to blend this up and speed this up, and I'll be back when I have the mixture blended and my chaffle makers already heated to go, and we'll make this and test it, and I'll meet you right back here. And it was about this moment that I realized I had missed a very important ingredient in this recipe, a half teaspoon of baking powder. I'd inadvertently left it out when I laid out the ingredients for this recipe, but I was able to add it here in the blender and continue on with the recipe. But this is why it is so important when I tell you to please visit the links in the video description below and on the screen. Not only do the recipe developers deserve the credit for their hard work in creating these recipes, but it also prevents me from making a silly mistake like this and you not getting the correct ingredients. All right, let's continue. Okay, so our batter is ready to go. This will make 3 to 4 chaffles, he said, depending on the size. It's super smooth and creamy, and this is what we're sort of looking for and the reason we're using a blender, I would imagine. Now, I've gone ahead and preheated my 2 chaffle makers, and I use the Dash Mini, and he uses a much fancier quadruple well waffle maker, and those are thicker. They make thicker waffles. The thing with the smaller Dash Mini waffle makers that are so prevalent in the chaffle world is that they're thin. The plates sit closer together, so you get a thinner chaffle, which also makes it crispier now. So we're got that going against us, but I haven't invested in, I don't make chaffles enough to invest in beyond this yet. Perhaps I will, but this works for me now. So that's what we're going to use here today. I do have 2 of them. So we just want to make sure they've got a good bit of oil on them with some avocado oil. Just hit them a little bit, not much. If you want to know, Christy Sullivan at Cooking Keto with Christy posted about this little oil sprayer, and it is the best thing. The thing is so cheap, and it works great. So I'll put a link down below if you want to check it out. So thanks, Christy, for turning me on to that. And you should get 4 chaffles out of this. So I'm just going to spread some of this batter out, just eyeball it here. And we hope we can get something that's soft and bun-like. Now, he didn't really advertise this as a, quote, soft or fluffy chaffle. I sort of put that on his recipe, whether it should have or not, but because in looking at it when he tore it apart, it is really soft and nice and looked like it would make a great bun, which is what I think most people are trying to use a chaffle for. So we're just going to close these down. We're just going to let these cook for about 3 to 4 minutes until the light goes off and the steam stops to escape, and then we'll take these out and test them. But while that's cooking, though, I do need to give a huge thank you to the sponsor of this video, Armra Colostrum. I'm sure you've seen a lot of information lately about the tremendous benefits of colostrum. If you don't know, colostrum is the first nutrients that we as mammals receive from our mother's milk. It's like a blueprint for our life moving forward. It's everything we need to jumpstart our immune system and create our gut microbiome and put us on a track towards a vital life. And Armra Colostrum comes from the grass-fed pastured milk of cows, and it's they use cold chain technology because it is a bioactive whole food. Heat can sort of interrupt some of those processes. You'll also want to make sure that when you take your Armra Colostrum that you do so in a cold beverage, or like some people just scoop it directly in their mouth, which also affects the dental health and mouth microbiome as well as the gut. There are over 400 bioactive nutrients in a serving of Armra Colostrum. This is peptides and antibodies and whole food prebiotics and antioxidants. And I started noticing things like I wasn't as gassy and bloated after meals. I could eat spicy food a little easier without problems. But one of the main things I noticed was that like happens to many men and women, my hair was beginning to thin a bit, and I started to notice there was less hair in the shower. My hair looked thicker and fuller. I had smaller baby hairs coming in around my hairline, where I was sort of starting to kind of get worried about. So it's interesting the things that colostrum can benefit. And you're going to start with 4 servings of that. They've got an unflavored one, which is the one I generally prefer because it's just easy to mix in a cool water beverage. They also have some interesting flavors. I love the blood orange. It's nice to swap out one of my scoops of the unflavored for one little package of the blood orange. These are easy. They mix well. Right now, Armra has a great deal for you guys. If you want to check it out, be sure to go over to tryarmra.com/highfalutin and use my code highfalutin15 and you'll get 15% off your first order of colostrum. Be sure to check them out at the link down below. It'll also be in the video description. All right, our chaffles are almost ready. Let's go check it out. Okay, so we've got 4 of our Ultimate Chaffles by Southern Keto. They're a little darker than his that he showed, just because, like I said, on the Dash Mini, you can see by the thickness of it. They're thicker, they're thinner, and the plates are closer, so you get a little more browning on it. But they are already, I can tell, pretty much softer than a crispy chaffle that we've seen before. They really do break apart quite nicely. Look at that. Very bready inside. I hope as you see, I did add the baking powder to this. I accidentally forgot to put it on my list on my board here when we started producing it. So how does this taste? What does it taste like? Yeah. Very bread-like. A little bit of tang from the lemon juice and the yogurt, but not bad. Actually, it's quite nice. The most important part of this is I could make a burger out of this and bite it and it not crack, and all the burger or the sandwich meat or whatever you're making a sandwich out of is not just going to squeeze out the back end because it's so crunchy, as you can tell. And it doesn't taste like just a waffle, you know? It doesn't taste like a breakfast food. You could make it taste like a breakfast food with some syrup and sweetener or cream and butter. But this, that's a great neutral base for a sandwich. The texture is very light and fluffy. I can see where if you're using a regular waffle iron like he's using, I'm not sure about the 4-well Dash maker, if it's as thin as the traditional singles, but I can see where it would be fluffy and is already a much better option if you're making a sandwich for me than any of the traditional chaffles, which are just will crack when you bite them. So, all right, Victor, good job. Okay, let's get started on the second recipe, Wonder Bread. Come on. Okay, so the second recipe is the infamous Wonder Bread Chaffle. This thing's been around for a while. Again, we're using the recipe from Steve over at Serious Keto. He has it on his website. It dates back to 2019 on his site. But you'll see this everywhere. There's been lots of Pinterest boards about it. There's been a lot of Instagram, TikToks, all those things. And it is, I guess, almost the anti-chaffle because there's no cheese in it at all. So it starts with an egg, and we're going to use, make sure you beat that well, a room temperature egg, just so we are giving it the same benefit of the doubt that we did our other recipe. And so I don't forget the baking powder this time. We're going to put in 1/8 of a teaspoon, just a pea-pie tiny little amount of baking powder, because I imagine that this has a lot of work to do because there's not a lot of ingredients. That baking powder is going to have to give it some air along with that egg. Now here is the unusual, I guess you could say unusual ingredient, and that is mayonnaise. It calls for a tablespoon of mayonnaise, and maybe that's where that's an unusual ingredient, but I can see with the egg and the vinegar, maybe that's what's going on there. And you can see that already starting to react with that egg, so you just want to make sure you get that kind of smooth. To this, we're going to add in a teaspoon of water. I've just got some water here, going to scoop out a teaspoon. Yep. And lastly, 1 single tablespoon of almond flour. So again, not much. This is a recipe for 2 chaffles. Our other recipe made 4. So if you were going to make 2 sandwiches, you'd want to double this. But I'm just going to follow the recipe as written and make these 2. If it doesn't turn out or I want to make more, I'll double it and make another recipe. So just make sure you get this really well mixed up. It's very thin, very liquidy. And my waffle irons, my chaffle makers over here are already ready to go. Let's spray them. Ooh, they're warm. They are hot. Maybe a little too hot. They should self-regulate a little bit. I'm going to use a spoon to spoon some of this batter in. And yeah, it's super thin, as you can see. There's not a lot of substance to it, but maybe that's where all the fluff and the air is going to come from. I'm going to evenly divide this and try to fill this whole waffle maker up. Hopefully don't make too much of a mess if it runs out. And we'll do the same thing. I'm going to cook these for 2 to 3 minutes maybe. I bet this is going to cook pretty quickly. And I'll clean up here. We'll test these and then we're done. So I'll see you back here in just a second. Okay, so we are back and our Wonder Bread chaffles are out. And I got to tell you, they look amazing because those look like an old school Eggo waffle. They're soft, they're light colored, they seem to be very light and fluffy in texture. However, I'm going to tell you now my fear. I won't confirm it yet, but I'm suspecting this is going to be very eggy. You can smell it while it was cooking. I mean, the main ingredient is egg, to be honest. So let's see. It tears apart. Kind of eggy, kind of a little bit foamy feeling. You know, some of the egg white breads kind of have that foamy texture. If you can hear, just a little eggy. So importantly, I mean, it looks like it would make a great sandwich bun, I'll be honest. So what does it taste like? Tastes like eggs. Tastes like a scrambled egg. Scrambled eggs, it's not bad. Yeah, it's an egg. It's very low carb, would be very minimal carbs just because of the minimum amount of ingredients, but that's it doesn't do it for me. You might as well just scramble an egg. And put a tablespoon of mayo in it, which I have seen people do. They'll do scrambled eggs with a teaspoon of mayo in the egg while they're whipping it up, and it makes a creamy egg. And that's sort of what we've got here. So at least in this case, Victor, by far, whoever created the Wonder Bread chaffle, it's on Steve's site, but it's not his recipe. He was just featuring it. But of these two, Southern Keto's ultimate chaffle recipe definitely wins out. Very sandwich worthy, would come in handy for a lot of different applications, whether sweet or savory. So be sure to definitely check out him at his channel below. The video has quickly gone kind of viral. He's got a lot of views on that video in just this short amount of days, which sort of caught my eye and put me on this track. So thank you, Victor, for that. Thank you, Steve, for featuring the other one. Be sure to go check out both their channels. Thank you guys for joining me. I say it every time. These videos are a way for me to maintain my low carb way of eating, and looking into the end of that camera as often as I can keeps me honest. So I appreciate that you guys have come along for the journey. I'm going to ask you to please hit the like button down below. It lets the algorithm know that this is a video that other people might like too, and to try to share it with them. And I'm going to ask you to please also hit the subscribe button and the bell down below. Just click that to be notified when I release a new video. Most of the views on my channel these days are not from subscribers. They're from new people. So it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It keeps you in the loop as far as new keto and low carb recipe reviews and content. So please do that for me down below. I also am over on Facebook and Instagram. It's just the name Highfalutin Low Carb at both of those locations. I talk a little more frequently over there, tell some jokes, and so show you some different things that I'm eating and doing. And if you want to join me there, I'd love to see you over on both of those platforms. And I also need to thank the sponsor of this video, Armra Colostrum. It's a product that I love and use regularly. So if you want to try it out, go to tryarmra.com/highfalutin and use code highfalutin15 and you'll get 15% off of your first order. And lastly, I need to thank my rock stars. Without them, none of this would be possible, and that's my Patreon members. You're going to see their names starting to scroll over here, and if you'd like to see your name over here as well, be sure to visit me at patreon.com. If you don't know what Patreon is, it's basically the tip jar for the internet. It lets people like you who enjoy what people like me do here on YouTube. You can give $1 a month to help keep the train on the tracks and let everybody know that you're a sponsor and support these messages. So, all right, guys, I love you very much. I'll see you in the next video, and remember, today is a great day to have a great day.